But if there's one thing that I've noticed with posting this list is that I don't think most people realize just how good Shirayuki is. Not only that, but I don't think people realize how good Murakumo is, including Murakumo players, which we can get to that part later. But talking about this list, Shirayuki, because like if you guys saw my video about Shirayuki, my last Shirayuki list, I was talking about how I was originally trying to update Premium Yasuye, but instead I just came to the realization that Shirayuki is better in every way, because the whole point of me trying to build this Yasuye was to have a very like heavy multi-attack deck, like Shadow of Clone multi-attack deck. And then the thing that I just started to realize is that Shirayuki just makes that better in every single way, because especially the new Six Flowers of Phantasm Shirayuki, because you ride this Shirayuki, drop your opponent by 10k. Have this one on rear guard. The second they guard anything, you drop them another 10k, and you can keep dropping them lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And that just makes all of your multi-attacks that much more threatening. And so I was like, okay, Shirayuki's the sauce and is really, really good. Now I made some changes to this list because this is mostly the same as my last Shadow Stitch Shirayuki list, except I dropped a Lady Silhouetta painfully. I did not want to, but even more painfully, I dropped a Fright Sickle and I dropped a Kadogu and a Onibayashi to make room for 4 Nudo, because I don't know why I wasn't running Nudo in the first place. I guess Nudo just didn't really click with me that I could be running that in Shirayuki, but it makes perfect sense because it's so easy to like Kage Bunshin your board with a bunch of Nudos and then build up a bunch of soul and draw a bunch of cards. And that's what this deck wants, right? That's why I'm running Fright Sickle and things like Onibayashi to draw cards and build up soul. So I was like, why am I not running Nudo? So it worked out pretty well. The other change from my Shirayuki list that I have is this card right here, this Stride. This Stride doesn't come up very much, but I really like having it. Its skill is that on place, you can superior call a card from your hand, and then you can choose one of your units and let it attack from the back row. So there are times where I've had where it's like, okay, I don't really have much I can really do this turn, but I have a Fright Sickle and a Hedon Scroll in hand. So I'll stride into this, use this card to superior call the Fright Sickle. The Fright Sickle now has been placed by an effect so that it can go back to the deck to draw me a card, and then I can use Hedon Scroll to pull out the other 2 and then just swing with all of them. And if I have a Kadogu, then I'm swinging with even more Fright Sickles and just drawing a bunch of cards. It's really, really good, actually. What do you absolutely need for the G-Zone in this deck? I'm close to finishing this deck, but don't have the G-Units finished yet. Okay, so what for the way I play this deck, what you absolutely need right now, because this deck will change once Premium Collection drops later this month. We can maybe talk about that a little here in a little bit too. What you absolutely need for this deck to work right now is Shibaraku Victor, because Shibaraku Victor is your setup, right? And he's pretty much always going to be your first stride right now. Like sometimes this can be your first stride, but only in very fringe situations. Like the situation I just described where I had a Fright Sickle and a Hedon Scroll in hand and not much else. And I didn't really have much else in drop to be able to try and like dig for with Victor here. So I went into this and was able to get 3 Fright Sickle strings that all drew me cards. So there was that. So this 100%, this is kind of like a nice to have. And then you really want these right here, the Sweetly Smiling Shirayukis, because this is going to be your, like once you stride Victor, then you pretty much just stride this until you win, unless there's like a situation where you need to go into either of the Yasuye strides in like fringe situations. So like the main things for sure are going to be the Victor and these Shirayukis. this Shirayuki is not at all necessary. In fact, if you're striding into the Shirayuki, things are probably not going too well for you, in all honesty. I just have it, and so I threw it in there because more often than not, I find myself not really using this Shirayuki's counterblast skill. I mostly just use it for the GB3 to have the back row attacks of Shirayuki, because I feel like by the time unless I have like a bunch of face-up Shirayuki G units, it's better just to use the counterblast for this Shirayuki, the 6 Phantasm Shirayuki. Ideally, you rode this Shirayuki, you minus them by 10k, and you have this to minus them by another 10k. At that point, 5 isn't really what you need. What is the damage deny stride? Honestly, the only strides that use CB is Tenma. Tenma's really the only thing that has to use CB. This Shirayuki can use a CB, but it's not necessary. You only use this Shirayuki CB if you need it to get to GB3, or you just need it to minus your opponent by some power. You know, let's talk about the new premium collection stride. Ambush Stealth Rogue Izushio Tome. Now, if we look at the comments, right? This person says, certainly as a card, I guess. Going into this first means abandoning the only win con in the clan. I don't know about that. It doesn't give any power, nor drives, nor crit, or even any draw power, let alone bouncing the clones back to the hand like Genma does, which Genma only bounces 1 back, but sure. The one and only use for it is calling Sickles and Yudos to secure draws. Pretty bad compared to everything else in the set. Now, you might say this is just one person, but I've seen more than one person say this about this card. So let me just dissect this statement first of all. Bro, what did you want? She did buy you a house. Victor isn't the only win con. Yes, exactly. Victor isn't the only win con. And if you think Victor is the only win con, or Victor is your win con, you know what? You might be bad. I'm just gonna say it. You might be a bad player. But let's take this statement apart, because like I said, I've seen this in more places than just this. This is just the easiest, most readily available example for me to point at, right? Skill issue plus ratio plus Vanguardians. So first of all, Shibaraku is not the only win con. Second of all, it doesn't give any power. It doesn't need to. Shirayuki exists. Also, things like Fright Sickle gain power, so we're good. Nor drives. Don't really need drives because we draw a ton of cards with things like Fright Sickle and Yudo. Or even any draw power, which, again, we don't need draw power. We have Fright Sickle and Yudo. Let alone bouncing the clones back to hand like Genma does. I would argue that in Murakumo right now, you do not want your clones back in hand. You want them back in deck to be shadow cloned back out the next turn. So, let's look at this card. Vanguard Circle. Actually, you know what? There is one bad thing. There is one bad thing about Izushio here, and that is that she does not have the Shadow Stitch keyword, which makes Onibayashi not usable. And speaking of, you know what? Let me just call out some other stuff right now too with Murakumo. Onibayashi is getting cut and does not need to be $13 a copy. It does not need to be moderately played $14. 16. No. Strictly, bro. Groove just, guys. No. This is not a $20 card. This is not a $25 card. Guys, do not buy this card. If you do not have Onibayashi yet, do not buy it. I'm saying it right now, and I think I need to definitely put this out here now on YouTube. Do not buy Onibayashis, and especially do not buy them for this price. They are not worth it. The only reason this card I even considered using it in my last Shirayuki list is because Shibaraku Victor has the Shadow Stitch keyword, which makes this skill work. And And also you would, at that time I was going into Tenma a lot more as well. And Tenma, that's a Yasuye, so it makes this skill work. Do not buy this card, because the second this card drops, I feel like our whole game plan is about ready to change a lot. Because this doesn't have Shadow Stitch, Onibiyashi is not worth it anymore. Just not worth it anymore. You can try and cram it in, but the decks that are topping playing Shirayuki, other than mine, already aren't running Onibiyashi. So, taking this skill, it's Counterblast 1, put a normal unit from your drop on the bottom of your deck and turn a card from your G-Zone face up. Fantastic, because this already, like, you'll still run Shibaraku Victor, but you're just gonna flip it up with this rather than stride it, right? Striding it, like striding Shibaraku Victor, like if your win con is having 2 face up Shibaraku Victor and soul blasting and superior calling them over and over and over and over until your opponent dies, this still does it better, because you aren't going to sit there and loop Shibarakus on your first stride turn when you stride Shibaraku. You will flip up one though, which you can still do with this. Second stride, you could go into this again, flip up the other one, and there's your win con back. Nothing has changed. This also puts cards from your drop zone back into deck, which is also like something that you really, really want in Murakumo, because you want your copies in the deck to be called out from the deck for your multi-attacks. So that's just the cost. The cost alone is great. Choose up to 2 of your rear guards, search your deck for up to 1 card with the same card name as those units each, call them to rear guard circle and shuffle your deck. So this already gets you Shadow Clones, right? And then the continuous skill is all your units can attack from the back row while you have another unit with the same card name as themselves. You are getting, just from that first skill alone, you are getting 2 back row attacks. That's 2 extra attacks. That is a 6 attack turn on your first stride with this card. They can be Fright Sickles, which is great because then you can like swing with a bunch of Fright Sickles. And then draw a bunch of cards. You can get Nudos, which can also draw you a bunch of cards. Like another example too, which is great. And then like, sorry, I'm jumbling all over the place, but like you can be like, oh, the back row attacks don't really matter if they can't hit, but play Shirayuki, or even Hyaki, because Hyaki gives power like crazy, right? And you can just copy everything with Hyaki. Like this works with both of those, and your back row attacks are all of a sudden a lot more threatening. This card is amazing, and if you think that this is just a card, you are not good at Murakumo and should probably pick up a different clan. I'm sorry, that's harsh, but I'm saying it.